Sorry for the technical difficulties.
We
We
back.
back though. So hopefully, if you were watching, we'll give y'all some time to get in here. But yeah, basically we're just breaking things down. Official UFC 318 recap brought to you by Bros Talk MMA. I'm your host, Utica, undeniably the illest cat around, aka Mr. Make This Pick Real Quick. Here with my bro host extraordinaire.
I'm guaranteed, Mr. Moneymaker, Mr. Bag Chaser, Mr. Let's Get This Money.
Yes, I'm starting to hit a ceiling with my equipment. Some of it overheated, causing the whole broadcast to shut down. So we're on our secondary equipment. We got to keep a plan B. Not like that, but anyway. Um, but yeah, we were just breaking things down for the fights. We had the chat rolling, so shouts out to the chat. And,
Yeah,
just
shout out to
shouts out to
everybody who
everybody.
showed up in the chat.
Yeah, shouts out everybody who tunes in, on a week to week basis. Um, make sure that you like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And yeah, I mean, last thing we were doing, we were interacting with the chat, but then we got the Adam Fugit Islam Dulatov fight that we went over. So I guess next thing that we can talk about is Eteba Gautier going up against Robert Valentin. That was crazy.
Yeah, I took Valentine on that pick.
Went pretty much the way I expected it to, but it was just like one of those things where Gautier, he's good, and people were calling him Mini Ngannou after this fight, stuff like that. But it's that's only going to take you so far. So I'm interested to see how he expands his skill set, and if he doesn't just stick to just being this power striker. Hopefully, he decides to broaden things out and try to make sure that they're well rounded in all facets.
I feel like he's got to lose some weight here shortly, like eventually, right? Because eventually his stamina is going to become a problem as he starts facing these higher level fighters, especially wrestlers. You know what I mean? More muscle, more oxygen the body takes, the faster you gas out. And I feel like right now what he's got going for him is perfect. But as he starts climbing the ladder of this of opponents, it's gonna change for him.
For sure, for sure. Freddie, in the chat, you're wild, bro. Hey, I hope live your life, my man. Life. Anyway, shouts out to Nigeria Freeman. Yeah, people are wild, I don't know. That's a wild profile picture for Freddie on top of the comments, but it's whatever. Shouts out to you, Nigeria Freeman, Vance Bager. I don't like you. I don't like men that vape. Okay. That right. So
Now the
anyway.
world is vape. What are you talking about?
So anyway, yeah, dope fight, went pretty much the way I expected it to. Excited to see where Gautier goes after this, but just not sure if he's gonna, once they start putting him in there with, some real killers, how it's gonna fare for him down the road.
Absolutely.
Freddie said, "Hey, I'm not a fan of Kanye as a person. He's just my favorite music artist." Okay.
Yeah. I'm happy he makes you shake your hips.
Next up, this was one that I was sad I took an L on. You couldn't have gotten me to go for Nikolay Veretnikov, but I guess I shouldn't. I was basing my opinion on recency bias. So his fight against Francisco Prado comes out, guns a blazing. Looks like he's about to seal things up, but just like I said with my analysis, was just like he needs to stay measured. He needs to manage his energy because one thing with him is he has a tendency to gas out, and that's pretty much what happened. And he just he made it competitive. And, a lot of folks even thought that it was a robbery.
I thought
But
he won, personally.
for me, I just felt like I couldn't be mad at the decision because he left the door open. That's really
Right.
what it is. Yeah, I could see him
Right.
having won, a close fight, but I also see that he left the door open, and left it up to the judges, and you can't do that.
I felt like he was um, he was surprised by the power. I feel
Yeah,
like he I feel like he had to use his stamina to get in and out because he didn't do good with the power of Nico. How do you say that? Rednikov.
like Varetnikov.
Rednikov. Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like he wasn't ready for the power, and once he realized what he was going to have to do to get in there and get his punches in, it wore on his stamina because he's not a high gas tank fighter anyway. But in order for him to get in there and get his licks in, Renikov was so much taller than him and hit harder than him. He had to take him to the ground and do some ground and pound, which kind of frustrated me because he was cracking him and finished the second and the third round on top of the guy with ground control. Also doing more ground and pound in the second round than the third, but I thought he did enough to get the win. I thought Prado was the fighter to go in and do more than here, and Runikov didn't do that. I think he started off strong, and in the later rounds, that UFC experience of Prado, you know what I mean. He looked like he was going to lose the fight in the first round. You watched the second and third rounds, and he came back second. Third round, I thought he took, though he had some good exchanges. You look at Renikov's face; it was pretty busted up, and
yeah,
Prado didn't have much damage.
no, definitely. And it was like I think Prado was also just surprised by the staying power. I think
Absolutely.
his head. I think he has issues with folks who don't, fall down immediately after he, catches them clean, or, even
Yeah,
just just hard enough in general to rock somebody. Like when that doesn't happen, I think that's when he tries to pour it on, and that's when he ends up gassing out.
absolutely.
Let's see here. And moving on, we got Marvin Vittori going up against Brendan Allen. Um this fight,
That
it
was a
went
good fight.
it was a good fight, and it went pretty much how I expected it to. Marvin Vittori, has got a head like a brick. So Brendan Allen wasn't gonna knock him out by any means. He was,
Right.
his moments on the feet, just, you know, giving him, some work. But outside of that, the grappling, Marvin was able to hold his own, and it was a good fight. But overall, yeah, Brendan did get the better of him. I don't know. I think Marvin wasn't, you know, all the way invested on this fight.
Well,
You
he
know,
lost his brother not long ago in a fire. So he has some
yeah,
things going on during his training camp, you know what I mean? And not to
yeah,
take anything away from Marvin Vittori, he looked as good as I've ever seen him. But with that being said, he's a fullback fight in UFC. You know what I mean? He could take a lot of punishment, kick him, punch him, beat him, and he could take it. But when it comes out to skill versus skill set, I mean, if it's not a brawl, I think he has a hard time finishing these high level fighters. And
yeah,
I think Brandon Allen's he's not necessarily an elite fighter, but you see him last night come back from controversy because it was give and take with that whole fight. And there were some points I was a little worried about Brandon Allen because he looked like he was struggling. You know what I mean? Looked like he was having a hard time trying to he didn't feel like his punches were being as effective. And Marvin Vittori just has a good poker face, or just a hard fucking head. You know what I mean? It didn't
yeah,
look like it was affecting him as much. And like you said, when you're hitting somebody with everything you got with the kitchen sink, and the dude's not budging, you know what I mean? And you get clipped in the head, and you're like, ooh, that kind of fucking hurt. You know what I mean? It kind of makes you re-strategize and redirect your energy and where you really want to spend most of this fight, standing in front of this guy or getting him to the ground to where he's not going to be punishing me so bad.
yeah, definitely. Freddie in the chat acting wild. This dude is wild.
I know
Uh,
that, like, fuck,
I'm a at home pooper, bro. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, weather the storm and just wait till I get to the crib.
Yeah, I like to watch a lot of scoops. You know what I mean? While I'm sitting there just minding my business. A lot of people getting hurt and dying and shit. You know.
Shouts out to my guy Brendan Allen though, going 2 for 2 for the squad because the weekend prior, Tuco Tokos took home a
Yep.
win. Funny, or just quick story. I met those two in Arizona for the Gaethje Oliveira championship fight, and they were just walking around, just cooling. I thought they were just like regular, fans like me. And then I looked, I was like, "Hey, are you Brendan Allen?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, that's what's up." And then I met Tuco with him. He was just, just like homie and training partner with him, as far as I knew at that point. And then we all ended up running into Bilal Muhammad, who was
I
like
remember
engaged.
that video.
Bilal Muhammad's a cool guy. A lot of people be talking shit about him, but he's actually really cool, especially, with the fans, and he's real engaging and everything like that. And so, yeah, I met all those cats, and they were all cool peoples. And, I just try to keep up with Tuco and Brendan, since then, just, via IG, just, wish them luck in their fights and shit like that. So it was cool to see Tuco get his first win and, Brendan Allen to follow it up. So salute to those guys. Let's see here. Next up, we had Kyler Phillips going up against Vinicius Oliveira. Another one. Like I'm telling you, if you ain't
Yeah.
watching these breakdowns, man, you're missing out because, like I
Yeah.
said, even if you don't agree with my pick, you're still probably going to agree with the analysis for the other person if that's who you're going
Yeah.
for. Because I mostly break it down. I break it down the middle, but then I'm forced to make a pick. So then I go with whoever I go with. In this instance, I got the pick right. But Kyler Phillips and Vinicius Oliveira went exactly how I expected it to. Oliveira was having issues with Phillips when he was moving around and, just
Yep.
sticking and moving. And that's really just what Phillips should have stuck to. That should have been the plan the entire time. It was when he tried to make things close and he tried to, lean
Yep.
him up against the fence or get him down to the ground. That's when Vinicius came on. And then he was landing nasty strikes. And then after a while, combined with fatigue, Kylie Phillips found himself, gassing out and just not able to, handle what Vinicius was throwing at him. And yeah, so, Oliveira ended up, taking on and just basically battering him, the rest of the fight.
I felt like his Vinicius, whenever he would, I don't know, like his body movement, it almost looked like his legs were getting wobbled, but it's not. It's the way he retreats out of his from those fist fights because his knee would go like it almost like his knees were getting wobbled, but he'd be throwing punches like it almost reminded me of Dominic Reyes. You know how like he's usually throwing a punch by trying to not Dominic Reyes, I'm sorry, Cruz when he's throwing a
Yeah,
punch
Dominic
while he's
Cruz. I
trying
know
to
what you're
move.
talking about.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when he's moving and punching and trying to like literally trying to get his body out the way right after he makes contact with a punch, which I really don't disagree with the. I don't agree with the fight style, but it reminded me a lot of that. Like he was trying to. It's like a real slick, real. If you're not good at it, you could get caught slipping real easy. Type of
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah. Once he figured it out though, yeah, it was
Oh yeah.
gradually got darker and darker for Phillips. So, shouts
I
out
was
to
worried about how long it took for him to get to actually, having an impact on Kyler. I,
yeah.
I was surprised.
Yeah, Kyler's good, man, but yeah, he's gotta figure it out with that cardio and just find a more measured game plan where, I know he probably wants that finish, but
Sure,
at the
for
end of
sure.
the day, you gotta get that W. You gotta secure the W first and then just hope a finish presents itself or something.
Yep.
And here's the freaking shocker of the night for me. Not like super shocker. I think Holland and D-Rod is probably the most shocking fight, along with like Kopylov and Costa for me. But
Right.
Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber, man.
Right. That was a fraud check
Zellhuber
for
had
Joe Huber.
yeah. definite like fraud checking, and also just kind of like, he has all the tools, but I just think that sometimes he has too measured of a game plan. But then again, how can you fault him? Because I don't think he's powerful enough to, really, put a pace on someone and break them, over the course of a fight. He really has to be able to lead the dance, I guess, in a
Yeah.
sense, to be able to win the fight. And Michael Johnson was not letting that happen. And
He showed everybody how to beat Zellhuber, unfortunately. He showed you
mhm.
exactly how to beat Zellhuber. You don't have to be great. You don't have to be polished. You just have to be willing to get in there and freaking, you know what I mean, make it a bit of a dogfight. Zellhuber
him,
doesn't like that.
him and Rebovix now at this point have shown
Yeah.
a clear path to victory on Zellhuber. You just gotta basically be the aggressor, and be willing to, take the volume to land impactful shit that, eventually, no matter how many leg kicks he throws at you, or, you know, leg kicks to the arm or whatever, it's not impactful enough. And, Michael Johnson at the age that he's in, with the wear and tear that he has, I mean, this was his 31st UFC walk. It wasn't even just just like overall, on his regular. He has 31 fights in the UFC just alone. Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I say
You know,
5, 7 years ago, he would have finished Zellhuber a lot earlier. An
and
earlier.
he's winning on a night that Dustin Poirier is losing, and those guys met some time back, and Johnson got the victory. So it's just
First round
wild.
knockout.
We got Ogie
OG Rat.
Rat. And they say, "What the fuck, Pineapple Boy?" Yeah, I see the aesthetic back here. That was a good one. Uh, but yeah, Michael Johnson showing that the old man still has something left in the tank, and we were talking about this before we went on air. Just it really goes to show the evolution of even the old guys in this sport now, in MMA and
Yeah.
UFC in particular, and how they're evolving, and they're able to, have longevity in this sport. It just shines a brighter light on UFC, because then it's just like it shows an overall depth to their roster. Even our old guys are still holding their own. So
Yeah.
shout out to Michael Johnson for sure. Huh. I don't know. Shout well, huge moolah in the in the chat. I don't know what that means.
He said old
If
balls on his chin.
Yeah, I don't know
I
if
don't.
the OG rat or who he's talking to, but shouts out for tuning in. Even if
Yeah.
you're trolling in chat, shouts out for tuning in, because it helps the numbers regardless. So much love. uh Next up, this one was a shocker for me. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Shouts out to you, bro. Friggin' first
Yeah.
off,
Thank
friggin'
you.
shouts out.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You called it, and you had conviction when you called that shit out. You weren't just, you weren't just going for Daniel Rodriguez on a whim. Like, nah, you said like, nah, bro, this fight's gonna go exactly like this, and it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin Holland's headspace in the past is going to catch up with him now that he's starting to take the fight game a little bit more serious. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to go with somebody that can have the headspace and accept a loss at that level when they're fighting. And I don't think every fight's going to be like that, but I feel like D-Rod had more to gain out of this fight, and he wasn't going to let this opportunity slip, because both of these fighters aren't necessarily spring chickens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And like we were talking about before we went on, you were saying, the power advantage went to Rodriguez.
Yep.
He was able to, withstand, what Holland was putting out there, and then close the distance and, crack him. And for me, it looked like after that, once Holland got clipped, it was a battle between him still, having that dog in him and able to, come back on later on in the fight. But then once the fatigue started setting in, on top of still trying to regain his bearings from getting, rocked, I just think it became too much for him, and that's ultimately why Rodriguez was able to, just ride things out to the cards.
And he was still putting it on him in the third round. Kevin Holland was clipping him with these uppercuts. I thought D-Rod had a chance of going down. Like, they both looked fatigued, and yeah, they both put on some work. But I'm happy that that D-Rod was able to pull this out, because I don't think he has as long of a trajectory of a career as Kevin Holland, because he's more of a fan favorite. People love him. Easy to love. You know what I mean? Does whatever the UFC asks him to do. So him losing this fight and D-Rod losing this fight, I think where the losses and the gains were substantially different. And I'm happy D-Rod pulled one out so that he could, extend his career a little bit longer and hopefully get some more dubs and give us some more fights. Because, I'm not a big fan of D-Rod, but if he fights like he did last night, you know what I mean? I love the fight. I love to watch him fight.
Yeah, I think, he had more to gain in this fight in terms of just like positioning and, just, where he goes from here. Kevin
Yeah.
Holland's, he'll be fine. This fight isn't gonna,
Yeah.
throw him
He'll
off
have more
trajectory.
fights and get his opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, he'll be good. He'll be good. Um, let's see here. Then we got the feature bout. We got Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Before we get into this, we just got a comment in the chat.
Chat.
Shout out Phil's real news and info. Shout out to you. He said Tom Aspinall is highly overrated. Okay,
Ooh.
this is what I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna
In
say
what
he's
aspect?
overrated, but I definitely feel like, in terms of yeah, he's good for the current UFC heavyweight division. He is that, division's
Yeah.
champion now at this
He's
point.
that
That's
guy
all.
right now.
But I just feel like, he thinks he can fuck with John Jones, but we may find out here really soon, whether that's a reality or not. I'm not gonna say he's overrated, but I don't think he can just run over John Jones like that. And he's
But
already pretty.
what about the rest of the competition other than John Jones? You think he stands out highly above everybody? You think he blends in with the pack of them?
He's kind of ran through the division already
Right.
at this point for the most part. Maybe there's only like Jalton Almeida and Derek Lewis for him to fight, and then just a bunch of other guys who have lost to guys that he's already beat already. Like, I don't
Right.
know if
Well, that's the beauty about these fighters evolving. You know what I mean? Second fight around, if it's long enough, there's been a long enough training camp, you see a totally different fight and a totally different fighter. You know what I mean? So as these fighters are taking losses, you have a chance to evolve yourself. And I mean, Max Holloway is a perfect example of that. He's taken some brutal fucking beatings from Volkanovski, from a brutal knockout from Islam. You know what I mean? And you look at him fighting last night, and he's championship caliber. You know what I mean? I know all that shit is white noise at this point from what he's done.
Yep. We got Baby Uno in the chat. Shouts out. John Jones ducked 2 people now, and John Jones is overrated. I mean, hey, everybody has their opinions. I'm not gonna say he's overrated. He's definitely at a different point in his career right now. So I can
Yeah,
see why, a lot of people think that, he's ducking and stuff. But like I've always said, I just think that, like, I can understand his opinion on like what does Tom Aspinall do for him. Like, yeah,
yeah,
he's the current champion, but even like Phil Real News and Info just said, he's the champ in a very weak division, you know?
yeah.
So, and I guess, even John Jones, then maybe he was the champ of a weak division, being the heavyweight champ when he was too. But at the end of the day, his resume, and just what he's done in the UFC, I just feel like putting him against Tom Aspinall, there's not much for him in the grand scape of things to gain, except for just, another name on his belt. The fact that he put a young up and comer back down and shit like that. But I don't know. I just feel like you can call him overrated, but I mean, go look at his resume. Most of his resume is title fights.
Yeah. I think with most people, they're looking at John Jones now and who he was now, who he was as a fighter, 10, 15 years ago is different than who he is as a fighter now. You know what I mean? Like he's still championship caliber. He's just not, you know what I mean? Nobody is. Look at Jose Aldo. Look at all these greats that come up and you know what I mean, you slow down. Last thing to go is power as a man. You know what I mean? You get older, your speed goes, your stamina goes, your awareness goes. It's a strength, and Michael Johnson proved that last night. You know what I mean? His strength is still there. But as far as I felt like John's kind of putting this on himself. You're gonna go walk around telling yourself, calling everybody, telling everybody that you're the GOAT and claiming that title. I mean, at this day and time, people are gonna want to check that. You know what I mean? You can't blame
Yeah.
them for Aspinall for wanting to check that. If you're saying you're the best at what you do and you do what I do, I want to test that. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
John Jones needs to have like a farewell fight and leave on top as the GOAT and let all this shit fucking weather itself out for all these new coming fighters because it's not doing any good bashing an old fighter that we all love, you know what I mean? And he's not the same fighter that he used to be. You know what I mean? Nobody is.
Well, it's the legacy thing. That's what it is, bro. It's all about legacy at this point. So I think that that's what he's trying to leverage more than anything in the whole
Right.
thing. And that's why it's going to take this White House card to get him, off the couch and like really dialed in because at the end of the day, um it's not about winning against
Right.
Tom Aspinall. It's about literally doing something that hasn't been done before. And, at this point, okay, that's why he's demanding like so much money. Like he's demanding basically a fantasy amount of money because that's how much his legacy costs. Like if
Yep.
you're really gonna put my legacy on the line like that, then it's gonna cost you. I don't think this has anything to do with Aspinall. I think it literally is about my legacy because I think John Jones is cognitive enough to know like he could lose. I think he knows that.
Absolutely.
How
That's why
much
he's picking and choosing who he's fighting.
yeah, I don't care what his lifestyle is like outside the cage. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows the X's and O's. He knows the business of it. And when it really comes down to it, it's not about beating Tom Aspinall because really think about his resume and him putting Tom Aspinall on it just in a general sense. Now, let's think about the fact that like who it is. Like if this was Ngannou, you wouldn't have had trouble getting him off the couch, even though he
Right.
wanted a bunch of money for that too, because it was a legacy thing. Like that's really what it is it's just his legacy. He knows that if he is in the position to lose, he needs to fall back on a fat pillow of money, to wipe
Yeah.
his tears away. Outside of that, I don't really think this has anything to do with Tom Aspinall.
Right. Real quick from the chat, Phil Real News says, I'd like to see him finish his career fighting Tom. I would too. That would be a banger. I don't want to see a fight with Cyril Gahn where he goes in there and he just mops this dude up and puts his hands up and everybody cheers. I want to see him go to battle. I want to see him right now what John Jones has to offer, and I don't think anybody's going to bring that out of him except Tom Aspinall. From what he's still capable of doing for the arsenal that's in his bag, the way he's still able to distance management and hurt people from a distance, I still think, you know what I mean? He still has, I think he still finishes Tom Aspinall just in a different light. He also said, win or lose, John Jones at the light heavyweight was probably the best fighter of all time via UFC rules. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I would not disagree. He also said that God knows that what John Jones would have done to people fighting underneath the pride fighting rules, he may have been even better. Oh, he would have killed somebody.
Real shit.
He would have fucking killed
Real
somebody.
shit. And I already know it's the unpopular opinion, to be, a John Jones, pro John Jones in this era right now. We got Darren Wardrop in the chat saying more bullshit. Hey, I never said you were gonna like my opinions, but I respect yours.
Yeah,
If you think it's all bullshit, hey, I can understand that because like Darren said, you want to see the best fighting the best. So I'm not saying that Tom Aspinall isn't deserving. I'm just saying, like, when you really think about it, it goes deeper than just, wins and losses. Like, this is a, a legacy, and not only a legacy, not only just John Jones' legacy, but a legacy that adds to the allure of the UFC brand. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So,
yeah.
like, I think that's why John, I'm sure he's told these fools, like, you really want to, like, I'm an extension of y'all in a sense. Like, is this kind of the way y'all want to do it? And if so, if y'all are willing to sacrifice, my legacy to keep your brand going on into the future, okay, cool. But you're gonna have to fucking pay me.
Right. I mean, it's no
Regardless.
different of a situation. I feel like Dustin Poirier with Max Holloway as his farewell fight. They didn't give him no fucking easy walk off fight. They gave him, something that we're all going to remember. And I mean, I remember Dustin Poirier for his career, but I like that at the end of these careers, they're not giving people layups to, you know what I mean, to walk around and parade their accolades, or you know what I mean. They're giving these people an honest chance to give it their all to walk off on top, and
Yeah.
it's a potential chance not to. And that's what I like about it. I mean, in comparison with Aspinall and John Jones, there's a lot of similarities, I feel, of like trajectory with like Poirier and Max Holloway. Like
Yeah.
everybody wanted to see it, you know what I mean? Everybody knew it was going to be a banger of a fight. I mean, everybody wants to see John. Let's be real, right? Everybody wants to see John Jones get fucked up. Everybody wants to see some new up and coming fucking lion come and give him some business. And
Mm-hmm.
it's whether John Jones wants to let people see that or not. Because I mean, I say let him, give them the opportunity to see it, because he's not gonna let nobody beat his ass. But I do think it's going to be, um, it's not going to be like the fights we've watched in the past where John Jones goes in there controlling the distance, putting pain. You know what I mean? I feel like Aspinall is going to come and try to dog it out. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, realistically, what we all want to see, right?
Yeah. No, and that's what I'm saying is I'm not opposed to the fight happening, but I do understand, John Jones not just letting it just be another, date on the calendar. Like, nah,
Right.
bruh, this has to be monumental if
He
we're
only
gonna
has
do
the
this.
X amount of fights left, so you can't blame John Jones for trying to max out on his way out. You know what I mean? He wants this done right and wants it done his way. I don't blame him. He's given enough to this UFC to, he's done enough for this fucking franchise to at least ask for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. But shouts out to everybody in the chat. Once again, whether you're trolling or whether you disagree, agree, any of that, it's all just, fun conversation, and I respect all opinions. So much love.
That Black
I like
Beast. Shout out David D.
yeah, Davey D in the chat, freaking let Black Beast fight Aspinall. I like the idea of it. I like what is it? Get up jitsu? just get up jitsu. uh, but yeah, I think we covered Paulo Costa versus. No, we were about to go into the Paulo Costa Roman Kopylov fight.
Yeah.
Um, bruh, this is just me because people were saying he was acting weird leading up to the fight, but bruh, he fought a damn good fight, and he won ultimately. But I'm pretty sure Paulo Costa was geeked on something fucking walking to the cage, bro.
Yeah.
Something was up on that walk to the cage, bro. He did not. He looked out of sorts for a second there, or maybe he was just hyper focused in the moment. He was trying to, like calm himself in the moment. I don't know,
Yeah.
but he looked crazy for a second there.
Yeah. He looked pumped for the fight. He 100 pumped for the fight. I'll tell you, Roman
If that's
Kopylov
what looking
didn't.
for a fight looks like, then people need to quit calling Conor McGregor a cokehead. Because those were the vibes I was getting. I was getting fucking wine and cocaine vibes off of Paulo Costa walking out to the cage. But then he got in there, they shut that shit, and the bell went, and then he just dialed in. And he
He had more
gave the
tools
word.
in the arsenal for sure. He had definitely had more tools going in there. I mean, Roman Kopylov walking. If you see his walkout, he didn't look too excited. He didn't look too. He looked like he was a little bit in his own head. You know what I mean? Definitely didn't look like fucking Paulo Costa. I'll tell you that. Costa didn't share whatever he had in the fucking closet with him, but
Yeah,
he didn't.
Secret Juice was on 10.
Bro, you imagine having something like that? You'd be able to conquer the world. You know what I mean? Walking out there like Costa did, like he knows
Yeah.
something we don't. You know what I mean?
He basically just, I want to say he basically just bullied his way through Kopylov's technique and, trying to keep it, clean. And he just made it messy. And
Yeah.
Kopylov had nothing for him because then
There
they're
was no
just,
respect shown for Roman Kopylov in that fight.
yeah, much love to Kopylov. He was my pick. But I think what happened is he just realized, like, man, like, if I get clipped, he's gonna put me down. And I think it just made him gun shy at a certain point, and he just wasn't able to get off any offense at that point.
Hey, shout out to all the 38-year-old fighters whooping that ass. Johnson, Costa, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
38's the new 20, baby. What's up?
I'm telling you, man, it's a good look. It's a very good look for the sport, because it just shows that these guys have staying power.
Yeah.
And you want that, you want to know that you have depth in your roster, whether it's age, skill sets, all that shit. You want to just make sure that, because a lot of people, I think even up here in the comments, I seen a comment that said that, these cards are starting to get diluted. And,
They are.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of name power on some of these cards and stuff like that. And they're trying to, introduce people in and, even cut costs to a certain extent. But hey, I mean, I guess that's what just separates hardcores from casuals and stuff like
For
that.
sure. Because diluted is better than seeing the same fights over again, especially fights that really didn't have any kind of volume or measure or excitement. So when you're matching, like if Dustin Poirier and Holloway's, those two fights weren't exciting, I have a feeling we wouldn't have seen a trilogy, you know what I mean? But the fact that those fights were bangers, you know what I mean, made a third one, even though Max lost both of them, you know what I mean, made Max a worthy opponent for this fight, even though he's lost to him twice. Because there's other fighters that don't get those opportunities anymore, like Brandon Moreno and Pantoja, you know what I mean? Like, as long as Pantoja has a belt.
There wasn't, they had a belt on the line, but it's not a championship belt. And, it was really just these guys' name power that, they were able to, bring UFC out to New Orleans when New Orleans probably wasn't even on the docket as a destination. So, shouts out to them. And like we're saying, these guys have real longevity and staying power these days. So you can't just necessarily count somebody out when they're 40. I mean, shit, Glover Teixeira won the fucking title at 40 plus. So, you got shouts out to the old guys,
Still
that's
putting
what's up.
belt to ass. Shout out to the old generation.
Let's see here. Real quick, Phil. News and info almost reminds me of the way Bellator was doing it, putting people in there with tons of losses. Well, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, some of these cards, aren't just like from top to bottom stacked. They definitely pick and choose which dates they want to, really, put it on from prelims to main event. But I like the idea of like what Darren said, just seeing these new faces come in, watching new talent so that you can see the Ilia Toporias of the world before they actually become who they are and shit.
Yeah, I feel like Bellator doesn't have a big of a collage of name fame, right? So they didn't have all these fighters that people knew, so that if you were an exciting fighter and people like to watch you fight and you lost a bunch, you were still in Bellator, you still had a chance, you still had fights, right? Because people knew who you were. It was more of like for Bellator. I mean, they had they have people that names that came from the organization, just not as many as the UFC. The UFC, you expect to know every single name on the card, but if you're a casual, chances are you're not, especially right now while they're in the transition of retiring older fighters and bringing new talent in. So if you hadn't been watching prelims and these fighters on the upcoming and watching guys like Dulatov, what's his name, Rojas, you know what I mean? You really probably don't know what's going on. So if you really want to get into the MMA world and see what's going on, like depict the future, watch the prelims. These guys are coming up. These guys are fighting for their freaking lives, literally, because 1 or 2 losses and they're bounced out of the UFC. They don't have the name clout. So these guys are really, I mean, you want to watch some really good cards, watch the prelims, because some of these fights are they're way better than the main card, in my personal opinion. Some of them, they just go a lot harder.
Yeah, you could what was it? Yeah, you you could end up having a pit bull versus Ige on the main card, and it's like,
I know.
Shout out Cash Cole in the chat.
What's
I
up,
think you
Cash?
did pretty
Shout
well
out.
on your. I feel like you did pretty well on your picks last night. Yeah, no, but to be honest, yeah, if you talk.
We're having some technical difficulties. Shout out in the chat. If you guys can still hear me, say what's up. I'll keep this going until Cash is able to, or Utica is able to figure out what's going on. Cashy Cole, can you hear me in the chat? I agree, Phil, Real News. I'm telling you, those early prelims, man, those are the fights to watch. You wanna have it even out the betting odds, bet on the prelims. Because a lot of those guys aren't really favored to win off of names or what they've done. A lot of those guys are coming in, and for me, it's been easier to bet and make money off of the prelims. I agree. Nobody likes watching these fights, these point fighters, unless they're knocking people out. Point fighters necessarily aren't exciting to watch, personally. I like to see a dogfight. I like to see some turmoil, and I like to see people re-strategize what they're doing and pull a victory off. Because to me, that's part of going through deep waters, right? Getting taken to a place you're not familiar with, and then ultimately adjusting to the environment, being able to pull off a victory against some of these high-level fighters. Cashy Cole, what's up? He said he did 8-3 for the whole card. Man, shout out to Cash. That's real, Cash. Man, I'm interested to see which ones you lost, which ones you didn't pick right, because that's